The weather was perfect that day, marking the celebration of the transfer ceremony to the second school in the city of Lijiang. An animated group of students gathered in a spacious courtyard, surrounded by castle-like structures, giving the place a majestic atmosphere that stood out against the vegetation. In front of the assembled students, the director of the institution, Luo Hend, a bald man, imparted words of wisdom to everyone present. You have a single opportunity to shape your future destiny, so ponder carefully about your choices. He advised against being solely swayed by combat-related professions, emphasizing that careers in mechanics and summoning required considerable resources, something challenging for ordinary people. The impact of the speech left everyone present extremely excited and full of expectations. Some aspired to become berserkers, eager to awaken as true hunting machines, while others aimed to pursue the path of pharmacy. Among those present, a young woman expressed her thoughts, eliciting a reaction from a blue-haired boy who mockingly questioned, "Aha, is it true that you're afraid of dying?" Years ago, a revolutionary virtual reality game called Eteral was released. The unique experience and thrilling battles provided by the game led people to become increasingly addicted. However, one day, an intense green light broke through the skies, enveloping the entire city. The landscape was drastically transformed, with skeletal monsters flying through the still-tinted skies. The Earth's surface expanded enormously, giving rise to numerous dungeons and bringing with it a variety of monsters and alien races. Chaos descended upon the city, with the opening of multiple portals generating fear and widespread panic. Screams echoed as desperate people fled in all directions, trying to distance themselves as much as possible. At that moment, the game intertwined with reality, allowing all humans to enhance their powers, exchanging and improving their classes to fight against the emerging monsters. It had been a year since our protagonist, Zhou Yi, found himself immersed in this new world. A common young man, his arms wrapped in bandages, carrying a serious expression. Before delving into the current events in Zhou Yi's life, it is crucial to revisit a significant moment in his history, the death of his mother. This was a period that preceded the adoption of his new identity. Soon after, his sister, Zhou Yun, succumbed to a mysterious illness for which conventional doctors had no solution. Desperate, Zhou Yi sold his house and sought help even among relatives, resorting to low-level priests in an attempt to keep his sister alive. However, the truth remained cruel, as the origin of the disease remained a mystery, and his sister's life hung by a thread, able to die at any moment. With no alternatives in the face of escalating medical costs and his already insufficient part-time income, Zhou Yi was determined to switch his class to combat. His goal was to clear dungeons to earn money and take his sister to more advanced treatments by the priests. In the midst of this determination, a level 24 mage indicated a circle, announcing that the transfer ceremony was about to begin. As the students' identifications were mentioned, they headed towards the magic circle. The mage raised his staff towards the circle, and a purple light began to form, completely filling the space. The activation of the circle caused an intense wave of energy that made many students shield themselves, placing their arms in front of their faces. It was just a brief demonstration of the power of a level 24 mage. The surprising revelation for Zhou Yi was that the mage class responsible for conducting transfer ceremonies could earn around 6 figures in money. Shortly after, Professor Li Xiangyang from Class 5, holding a stack of papers, announced the first name, Zheng Cheng. He was a red-haired boy standing next to Zhou Yi, who promptly raised his hands, responding, "Present." Moving to the center of the circle where the purple light emanated, a strong wind spun around him, capturing everyone's attention. Although there were thousands of classes available for exchange, in this ceremony, only 3 professions most suitable for each individual would be revealed. In this world where monsters were abundant and evil creatures wreaked havoc, combat professions were the most useful and respected, in contrast to support classes, whose status was considered lower. Zheng Cheng expressed his frustration as he prostrated himself on the ground, disappointed that only classes like Pharmacist, Enchanter, and Decomposer had appeared for him. Clenching his fists on the ground, he exclaimed, "My God, how unlucky!" According to the probabilities of previous years, some people still held hope of eventually switching to a combat class. Among the 3 options that appeared for him, Enchanter was considered the most promising. After several names were called, finally, number 31 was announced, Zhou Yu. He took a deep breath, his eyes reflecting not fear, but confidence. With determination, our protagonist headed towards the circle, remembering that academic performance and attributes were not decisive factors at this moment, where equality prevailed. At this crucial moment in our protagonist's life, a man questioned Professor Lao Li about how many students from his class would move to the combat class. The answer was that only 16 would have this opportunity. The man then began to boast, mentioning that in his class there were 21 fighters and all indicators were according to plan, provoking Lao Li's anger. However, something caught everyone's attention. Turning to the center of the circle, the man asked, "What's happening with the class monitor? Is he frozen?" The wind hovering over the circle began to envelop our protagonist, who remained with closed eyes. The breeze became more intense, even causing his shirt to sway rhythmically. Opening only one eye, Zhou noticed that his necklace was shining more brightly and had moved away from his body. Gradually, the glow became more vibrant, taking on a golden hue. From inside the necklace, a tangible light radiated through the surroundings, leaving Zhou surprised and questioning what it could be. The light emanated the energy of a system being created. Once the activation was complete, various notification screens appeared in front of Zhou, informing him that the upload was complete. The most robust professional auxiliary system had been activated, along with a S+ level talent and the protection of the divine angel. Zhou rubbed his eyes, unable to believe what he was witnessing. A system? He questioned himself, but upon opening his eyes, notifications requesting acceptance of the divine protection still remained before him. Is this a real system? He wondered to himself. He raised his hand and touched the screen, recalling that he had acquired this necklace at a street stall in his previous life and had always kept it with him. In the past, he had tried to activate it several times without success, leading him to believe that maybe it was just a kind of treasure. Incredulously, he realized that this was indeed a miracle. The system screen indicated a divine angel protection of S+ ranking, and his affinity with light had increased significantly. He concluded that the effects of all abilities, divinities, and light were doubled. In this world, talents range from F to S level, and the higher the level, the better the amplification effect. Remembering this, Zhou smiled with hope, as the 3 optional classes that appeared in the ceremony were directly related to talents. While our protagonist marveled at his new gift, exploring the screens of a newly created system for him, others watched, wondering why he remained standing there. Some even questioned if he didn't want to switch classes, although that seemed unlikely, as something like this had never happened before. Suddenly, before everyone, a golden light cut vertically through the sky, completely altering the atmosphere of the place. The sky, once blue and full of clouds, took on a rosy hue with some golden rain-laden clouds emerging above all, leaving everyone stunned. The director, perplexed, asked the mage beside him, "Is this a class transfer phenomenon?" To which he replied, "No, it's a vision of talent awakening." Descending from above was a divine being with 3 pairs of wings. As it descended, some feathers detached, falling all around, and the entity approached Zhou, who remained enchanted by the beauty of this creature. His fixed eyes sparkled in the face of such perfection, while his necklace responded to the brilliance of the moment. The divine being had long hair that reached the waist, a beautiful face, and, instead of eyes, a golden blindfold. Everyone was amazed by what was happening. It was indeed a divine entity, graceful and imposing, hovering over Zhou, saying, "The light is your belief and the source of your strength." She extended her hands, smiled, and continued to say, "With the support of faith, the sacred light will always protect you and burn away all evil." As she nearly touched Zhou, our protagonist's body lifted, raising his head still in awe, responding to the touch. The angel began to transform into light, dematerializing towards the touch on Zhou's face. Finally, only the outline of her wings remained marked on his forehead, which at this moment remained with closed eyes. Upon opening them, a strong energy penetrated his body, his eyes gleamed in shades of green and gold, and a 4-pointed star symbol appeared in the center of his forehead and eyes. The sweet voice of the angel still echoed, saying, "Yet, I will always be by your side." Next, the light enveloping our protagonist seemed to burn through his entire body. His hair stood on end, his eyes widened with brilliance, and he let out a silent scream, as if undergoing a shock. Suddenly, that moment ceased, giving way to the appearance of 3 figures hovering over him. The people who were there, watching, were incredibly astonished, in shock. One of the students approached his teacher, questioning if gaining new talents during the class transfer ceremony was a matter of luck. Another, hands on his head, wondered if the divine angel's protection vow would be a new talent acquired by Zhou. However, the prevailing question was, what kind of classes are these? Professor Li, perplexed, his eyes fixed and unmoving, couldn't believe it. He only uttered the words, "This is," as he was surrounded by questions. The reality was that these 3 figures in front of Zhou represented the hidden class. Before him were the options of his choice, the Light Mage, the Sacred Priest, and the Paladin. The Light Mage is a purely offensive class, capable of generating explosions but with limited abilities for life-saving, making it vulnerable in a world dominated by extraterrestrials. The priest, on the other hand, possesses many healing abilities and even the incredible power of resurrection. However, his own combat ability is practically non-existent, making him dependent on others, which might be unsuitable for Zhou Yi. The Paladin, in turn, is a balanced tank, capable of both resisting and attacking. For Zhou Yi, none of the options seemed perfect, but the gift of the light affinity was present. Considering it to be the most suitable choice, Zhou Yi placed his hand on his selection, becoming a Paladin. The figure of the Paladin rises, revealing itself as a massive knight in armor, holding on his shoulders a weapon resembling a judge's hammer. Before him, Zhou Yi seems like a mere ant. The knight begins to move, narrating the fundamental pillars: humility, honor, heroism, compassion, responsibility, and finally, he slams his weapon on the ground as the voice resonates, "Do what is right." Looking down at the small figure below, the Paladin concludes by saying, "A perpetual quest for justice and righteousness. That is to be a Paladin." Zhou Yi meets the gaze with a serious expression, showing that he takes seriously all the commitments mentioned by the imposing knight. Facing each other, the Paladin shines, leaving traces of light passing between him and Zhou Yi in perfect harmony. This same light envelops the body of our protagonist, his legs. Suddenly, 6 beams of light penetrate his back, unifying the figure of an angel with its imposing wings and the Paladin covered in golden armor. The system notification congratulates our protagonist on the profession change, now transformed into a Paladin. Beneath the helmet, Zhou Yi's face expresses conviction that he has just made the right choice. Upon concluding his ceremony, Zhou Yi was warmly welcomed by his classmates and schoolmates. Everyone wanted to be part of the same team, claiming that together they would achieve a high score. Some declared themselves wizards and asked to be called upon when Zhou Yi needed help. However, one person pushed everyone around, saying, "Don't cluster together, step back." Changing his mood completely, this man, with shining eyes, approached our protagonist, praising him and emphasizing how amazing everything had been. He asked Zhou Yi to rest for today, as he would need to report to the director's office the next day. Despite the comical scene, Laoban's actions frightened Zhou Yi, who tried to discreetly distance himself. After a while, our protagonist was already relaxed in his room, analyzing the distribution points that were still available for allocation. Frantically, he began to fill in the points, prioritizing the increase in strength, followed by physical fitness. Attacks with enough lethality to defeat monsters would be much more efficient. After completion, he had 26 points in strength, 20 in constitution, 18 in speed, and 16 in intelligence. Within moments, Zhou Yi could feel the energy bubbling through his entire body, a result of the changes in his attributes. As the energy enveloped his body, the sensation he experienced was refreshing. As a result of activating the points, the system also notified him of his first mission as a Paladin, consisting of a daily routine of one-on-one duels. Zhou Yi found it all interesting, and the rewards were great, so there was no reason not to accept. He clicked the confirmation button, and suddenly, a light began to envelop his finger. In an instant, he was engulfed in this light. The system was pairing with a random field compatible with his level. Once completed, a message appeared. "Kill the E-rank monster Gulabi." Zhou Yi was surprised by the rest of the message. "Please take this test seriously. If you die in the test, you will die in reality." Zhou Yi was already in a kind of mine, with no living soul around. He remembered from books that the Gulabi monsters lived in mines and, although not carnivorous, were still bloodthirsty and violent when they spotted humans. As he searched for these monsters, one of them appeared behind him, attempting to catch him by surprise. However, quickly, our protagonist noticed the failed attempt, emphasizing how they were dumb. They were monsters with impactful attacks, sharp claws capable of easily cutting through minerals. In the same instant, Zhou Yi skillfully dodged this onslaught. Excited to be facing a monster for the first time, he wanted to test himself, to see if he could defeat them without using any skills. Zhou Yi prepared for a leap and, propelling himself, landed a bit farther from the creature. Realizing that his body had become more flexible and his jumping ability had also improved, a result of the increased points in the 4 attributes. He got up, turned to face the Gulabi that was already charging at him. The monster tried to hit him again with its sharp claws. However, Zhou Yi managed to dodge. And not just once, but every time he achieved the same result. Our confident protagonist boasted as the Gulabis were slow, and with that, he could see the entire trajectory of their movements. However, what he did not expect was for the creature to use its sharp tail to come at him and hit him head-on. He ended up being thrown against the wall. Zhou Yi, surprised to see a huge hole in his stomach and the vast amount of blood gushing from it, froze, unable to take any action. Automatically, the golden energy began to emanate from him, and he, weakened, had to drastically support his hand and knee on the ground, still dripping a lot of blood. Seeing our protagonist fallen and weakened, the Gulabis now appeared as an imposing creature. Zhou Yi, putting his hand on the wound, saw a golden light emanate from it and said to himself, monsters don't care how much you trained in school. He applied a level 1 self-healing, which would take about 30 seconds, restoring a certain amount of health to 2 teammates within a certain distance. Zhou Yi stood up, his wound healed, affirming that he could not be underestimated by a low-level monster. The Gulabis focused, threatening him again with its claws, but this time, it was our protagonist's turn to counter-attack. Zhou Yi positioned his 2 hands in front, and a light appeared. In a cross shape, it was directed towards the creature as his hands turned backward. Everything lit up, and this ability was called Pure White Blade, Level 1, Rank C. After the strike, the attack would inflict magical damage. He propelled himself again, activating the Level 4 Tiger attack. It involved grabbing an enemy and running forward for a certain distance before throwing them. While running, he could deal damage with multiple attacks along the way. His charge was so violent that several debris fell in his wake. He advanced toward the creature and pushed it against the wall, causing damage. Zhou Yi clenched his fists, which were already surrounded by golden light, and said, "Let's go, my dear." From the body of the Gulabi, various lights emanated while it was still pressed against the wall. These lights were traces of the multiple punches delivered by our protagonist. The attacks persisted until a notification appeared, informing that the Gulabi monster had been defeated, and the test was complete with a rating of A. He could choose 3 rewards among 10 additional attribute points, acquiring Paladin abilities, or obtaining random Paladin equipment. Our protagonist stopped for a moment, analyzing all his possibilities. Attribute points and abilities are the source of a professional's power, but he was not in a hurry to improve his skills as he could still obtain these points for free. A good weapon would be of great help for the future, but the system would provide weapons as rewards. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to afford them. He opted for attribute points and random equipment, winning a simple one-handed sword. Next, the entire test area dematerialized in front of him, and in no time, he was back in his room, while a vibrant sound was heard coming from his pocket. He picked up his phone, saw that it was already 5 in the evening, and realized he needed to go to the hospital. There, a girl named Zhou Yun watches the news on television, where the reporter informs, "The miracle of the appearance of a holy angel occurred in a student's class acquisition. According to sources, the student awakened a talent before acquisition and joined the secret class, the Paladin. This was the first time a secret class had appeared in the city in 50 years. As Yoon listens to the news, her heartbeat is monitored. She is the sister of our protagonist. At this moment, the head nurse enters her room, turns off the television with an annoyed expression. Irritated, she shows Yoon a paper containing the medical expenses and shouts while hitting the remote on the paper. "It's time to pay the bills, it's 10,000! 10,000! The girl is frightened. "Why did it increase so much? Wasn't it 5,000? Is this some mistake?" Yoon is worried about this increase because her brother works 3 jobs to earn exactly 5,000 yuan. Where would he get the rest of the money? The nurse didn't want to hear it. Crossing her arms, she threw in Yoon's face all the care she had during this period, the amount of medicine that was necessary, and even the number of times she had worsened. Her stress increased more and more, leaving the atmosphere heavy with her words. "Such a young girl, if you think something is wrong, you go and figure it out. This is a hospital." Yun stammered, trying to explain that she might have misunderstood everything, but she kept talking without realizing that behind her, there was a hand approaching. Nevertheless, she did not stop saying, "If you don't have money, don't get a rich person's disease. Just accept your fate." But she interrupted herself, feeling the man's hand on her shoulder and his voice calling her in a gentler yet threatening tone. When the nurse turned around, she saw 2 men in suits. One of them, with a gentle smile, mentioned that he had overheard the conversation and highlighted the insults that had been generated. Then, he threatened, "I wonder if the nurse will continue to act this way after a visit to the director's office." The nurse scowled, judging the first impression she had of the men, and they certainly didn't seem like good-natured people, so she decided to leave. However, reaching the door, she asserted sternly, "You must pay the medical bills today." Yoon was startled because she didn't know either of the men in front of her and asked who they were, wondering if they had come to collect a debt. Gently, the man extended his hand, showing his business card, and introduced himself as a friend of her brother. Joey entered his sister's room, distractedly looking at the hospital system paper that showed over 100,000 wen in the account. He asked if she knew what was happening, but inside the room were the answers to his questions. Yoon became excited at his appearance, saying, "Big brother," while Zhou Yi, surprised, just wondered who they were. The gentler man extended his arm in greeting, introducing himself as Zhao Wenbin, the mayor's secretary. He would like to talk about some things. Our protagonist, analyzing the sudden greeting, knew that the mayor was the city's biggest tycoon, and sometimes his secretary could even represent him. So, he wondered why someone like him had come to see him. They shook hands, formalizing the introductions. Then, Zhou Yi informed that it was not appropriate to talk in that room, suggesting going somewhere else. Wenbin instructed his companion to stay with the girl, while he and Mr. Zhou talked elsewhere. The other man simply confirmed with an okay, while continuing to play cat's cradle with Yun. In a slightly more distant place, some comments were heard. A woman remarked that everyone had an idea of what was happening at the academy, stating that someone had managed to join the hidden class. The woman showed her phone to two more friends, confirming that the person's name was Zhou Yi, and even had his photo in school. One of them had even made a comment about how handsome he was. In this same location, Zhou Yi himself was present with the mayor's secretary, Wenbin. Wenbin started the conversation by congratulating him on the S-class profession, the guardian of the saint, and his transfer to the Paladin. In response, our protagonist simply said, "It was just good luck." However, Wenbin emphasized that obtaining such a notable talent in a normal ceremony is not something that can be considered mere luck, highlighting that the mayor attached great importance to it. He informed that the mayor had expressly requested that nobody from the media bother him. The man placed a box on the table containing a golden glowing key. He explained that his boss had also specially arranged a batch of resources for Zhou Yi to prepare for the grand exam. These resources were stored in the city bank's vault, and this was the only key. The secretary stressed that if our protagonist had any other special requests, he shouldn't hesitate to communicate them. Zhou Yi remained silent, just observing that gleaming key. He knew that in the eyes of the mayor, he probably believed that Zhou Yi would become a giant and that investing heavily in him wouldn't do any harm. However, as Milton Friedman once said, there's no such thing as a free lunch, especially in that world. Obviously, the mayor was hoping that one day this could be repaid. Knowing that this might not be enough, the secretary stated that from that moment on, a professional medical team would be available 24 hours to attend to Miss Zhou Yun, along with a level 36 priest who would be in the city in a month to attend to her specifically. At this point, there was no more doubt that they had discovered the weakness of our protagonist. Zhou Yi closed the little box with a simple smile, just thanking for the generous offer. After some time at the hospital, Yun was excited as her brother recounted his big news. With a charming twinkle in her eyes, she joked, "Brother, you're going to fly to the sky. Can I hang onto your legs?" Our protagonist flicked his sister's head, affirming that after this, she really needed to take even better care of herself. Curious, Yun asked about his abilities, as they are unique to each class. Reflecting on it, after the class change, only 3 specific abilities emerged for the Paladin. Pure White Blade played the role of the main attack. The slow regeneration ability took on the function of the primary healing, and the weapon blessing acted as support. At that moment, an idea popped into his mind. Can slow regeneration restore my little sister's health? He gently placed his hand on her head, and an energetic light began to emanate from his hand, indicating the use of this ability. Suddenly, the light intensified, enveloping Yun like a capsule that emitted a glow exclusively over her. Yun, with closed eyes and serene, could express how good she felt. In her thoughts, the sensation was like being in a hot tub, where small beings performed relaxing massages all over her body. After this wonderful moment, she could only hear her brother asking if she felt better, struggling even to open her eyes. However, as if by magic, she became completely excited because she no longer felt pain in her hands and sensed a comforting warmth. Our protagonist smiled, aware that he had made the right class choice. His concern for strength harmoniously blended with the care for his sister's health. The Paladin, being a support class, offered this unique combination. Even if he couldn't heal her completely, the ability to alleviate some of her suffering was already gratifying. The next day, the school director approached Zhou Yi, revealing that his phone nearly exploded due to the large number of calls from colleges and universities interested in a special recruitment. At that moment, teachers from 4 of the top 10 universities were present to evaluate him. Zhou Yi needed to deliver a remarkable performance and strive to secure the best resources. He explained to our protagonist that all these teachers were at the 2nd level and above level 35. Achieving a special recruitment would undoubtedly open doors to advanced training in the future. Curious, our protagonist asked which universities were interested in him. In response, he heard University of Rongyang, Sichuan University, Anji University, and Seoul National University. However, Zhou Yi showed surprise, asking about the absence of the top 3. Luo Hend explained that these institutions relied solely on entrance exam results, regardless of talent or class, and did not promote special recruitments. Upon reaching the destination behind the door, various conversations centered around fighter jets and their characteristics could be heard. The discussion was interrupted when the director opened the door, accompanied by our protagonist. In the room were the teachers mentioned by Luo Hend. Cordially, the director introduced them. Dear admissions office professors, the top student, Zhou Yi, is here. At that moment, the director introduced each of the present teachers, starting with Zhao Tianfu from Rongyan University, followed by Li Bing from Sichuan University. Professor Zhu Yu represented Seoul National University, and finally, Professor Yu Yuan from Anji University. Zhou Yi bowed in greeting to all the teachers, displaying his polite nature, and this attitude pleased everyone, as it did not allow arrogance to take over, even after achieving a hidden class. Once the greetings ceased, Professor Tianfu got straight to the point, asking for permission to discuss the conditions of his university, which was not well received by Li Bing. Nevertheless, Tianfu continued, "If you choose our university, you will receive 2 million yuans and 3 exclusive Paladin skill books." This offer impressed Zhou Yi, considering that an average family has a monthly income of 6,000 yuans, and Rongyan University was offering 2 million. Moreover, the Paladin skill books were resources to which ordinary people did not have access. Not even the mayor offered benefits like these. However, the offers didn't stop there. Li Bing presented an even more generous proposal, offering 3 million for admission to Sichuan University, along with 3 class skill books per year, 3 transfers at level 56, and most importantly, a dedicated paladin who would personally instruct him. This surprised both the director and Zhou Yi himself. Level 56 individuals were the closest to the top of the world, and if our protagonist became their student, his future could truly be limitless. Everyone seemed astonished, but a red-haired woman seemed quite calm, saying, Boys, this is just child's play. We need more sincerity." Then she explained that the admission fee for Seoul National University was not very high, only 2 million. But upon enrollment, they would immediately provide a B-level practice resource. "B-level practice resources," exclaimed Director Luo Hend, incredulous. He immediately turned to our protagonist, wide-eyed, veins bulging in his head, and smoke coming out of his nostrils, shouting even louder. "Say yes, quickly! B-level training resources cannot be measured with money." The reality was that with these celestial materials and earthly treasures, even a pig could transform into the most powerful monster. The woman, pressing for an answer, asked which proposal he would choose among them. Zhou Yi humbly thanked everyone but declined the invitation for the special recruitment. This decision surprised the director, who asked him not to be impulsive. Professor Zhu Yu, with a stern expression, wanted to know the reason for this refusal. Our protagonist then responded simply. He aspired to be admitted to the top 3 universities. Among the top 10 universities, the 3 main ones were Suhang University, Qingjing University, and Magic University. They boasted the highest status and were recognized as the top educational institutions in China. They admitted only one group of first-year students each year, and the enrollment quota was not limited to humans. It also included extraterrestrial beings like elves and giants. Alien races by themselves were stronger than humans, and with the vast Chinese territory full of talents, the competition to enter these 3 universities was extremely fierce. The teachers were perplexed by Zhou Yi's statement. The bald man burst into loud laughter, saying, "Ah-ha-ha-ha! I thought you were a promising seed, but it seems you're just a fool." Filled with anger, he began releasing his blue energy, flowing throughout his body. He claimed to have read all of Zhou Yi's information, highlighting the many losses in the first 18 years and the lack of good resources to compensate. His strength was weak, and attribute values were low. The energy released by the teacher caused a lot of initial pressure on Zhou Yi. If he had felt this pressure yesterday, he would already be on his knees. The teacher continued to talk about the extreme difficulty of entering these universities with Zhou Yi's current abilities, emphasizing that even if he succeeded, he would be among the worst. Without vigorous and precise training, he would remain one of the worst for the rest of his life. Upon realizing the intense pressure caused by the teacher's energy on Zhou Yi, the director immediately intervened, channeling his own energy. Standing in front of the teacher, he confronted him and said, "So, you're going to intimidate my students in my territory?" Even in the face of the intense power pressure released by both, our protagonist resisted, catching the attention of the woman, who found his resistance truly impressive. Taking a deep breath, Tianfu assessed the situation and then turned away, stating that student recruitment depended not only on potential, but also on character. With such character, success would be difficult. With that, all the teachers bid farewell to the director, acknowledging our protagonist's ambitions. Everyone left except for the woman. She recognized Zhu Yi's courage, but agreed that what Professor Zhao said was not an exaggeration. She explained that there were numerous geniuses in China, as well as alien races whose strength surpassed theirs. Zhu Yi smiled and stated that he would use his exam scores to demonstrate his strength. With only 1 month left until the big exam and the support of the system, he was confident that he could elevate his strength to a frightening level. Thus, the top 3 universities would be available for his choice. Lost in her thoughts, the teacher admired Ju Yi's attitude. It had been a long time since she had seen eyes so firm and profound, as if she had returned to the days when she herself fought on the front lines. She remembered that, after staying in a peaceful place for so long, her thoughts had been shaped only to seek stability. She smiled and also bid farewell, expressing anticipation to see him in the exam. 1 month had passed, and the big exam was about to begin. A massive stadium awaited with a large audience in the stands. In the center, participants were arranged in rows in front of an imposing portal. Everyone was eager, nervous, discussing possible questions. Some talked about Ju Yi and how he had declined special recruitment because his goal was to enter the top 3 universities. Some called him arrogant, emphasizing his confidence due to possessing a rare and hidden class. The conversation ceased when one of the guys spotted our protagonist. Ju Yi walked past them with a serious expression, exuding an energy that made the guys a bit uncomfortable. The pressure he conveyed made those around him realize that he was somewhat different, as even his breath exuded strength. Ju Yi now stood before the imposing portal, ready to face any challenge. The grand portal indicated the entrance to the dungeon levels 10 to 13, with difficulty ranging from easy to hard. The depths of the dark forest housed demonic felines and cruel minotaurs, known for their preference for human flesh. It was only 30 seconds until its opening. The participants, crowded together, exchanged information about the dungeon's terrain. The dark forest was mainly composed of swamps. The demonic felines were agile, while the minotaurs were resilient. The maximum number of people required to form a team and enter the dungeon represented its difficulty. Everyone was apprehensive, because in previous years the required number was 3 people, but this year it increased to 5. A man, seemingly in charge of the exam, drew everyone's attention, urging them to remember to do their best and use a return scroll in case of mortal danger in the dungeon, emphasizing that death inside was real death. He advised them with the words, "Prefer to fail the exam than lose your life." The countdown clock signaled the end of the designated time, and the instructor exclaimed, "Time's up! All candidates, get ready!" A blue light emerged, enveloping all participants and teleporting them into the dungeon. In the stands, everyone cheered, and the images showed some participants. From Class 1, Sun Qiang, a warrior, and also from Class 1, Mo Qing, an assassin, both without a group. Right after, also from Class 1, were Long Fei, Wang Fang, and Sun Jiam, a group of 3 with the classes Elementalist, Archer, and Underworld Mage. Next was our protagonist, Zhou Yi, a paladin from Class 5, also alone. Finally, a group of 4 people from Class 2 appeared, with the classes Archer, Fire Mage, Swordsman, and a healer. In the audience, people commented on how predictable all of this was. A young man explained that the experience itself was exclusive. The higher the score in the university entrance exam, the greater the risk of death. Only the best in the class would dare to face such a challenge. One of the girls pointed excitedly, saying, "Look, that's Zhou Yi!" Our protagonist appeared again on the screen, and behind him were various lurking eyes. Unlike the others, his difficulty level was Nightmare. The director of the education department, Jia Tao, appeared perplexed by the situation, not understanding how they could assign a nightmare difficulty to a single player. He pounded the stage and shouted, "A paladin's support ability is very strong. No matter who he works with, he is the best. Why did you want Zhou Yi to face this dungeon alone?" Clearly agitated, as he spoke to another bald man, he continued, "You also chose this nightmare difficulty with a high mortality rate." He turned to the screen again, calming down, and explained to Director Liu that this month the city had allocated many resources to Zhou Yi precisely to achieve good results. However, if he failed in the dungeon, the reputation of the entire municipal government of Lijiang would suffer a severe blow. Director Liu asked Director Jia to calm down and not worry, as Zhou Yi was not a careless person and surely must have something hidden up his sleeve. Meanwhile, in the darkness of the dungeons, only lurking eyes watched every move of those present. A shadow passed at high speed, barely identifiable, but the moment was alert. Zhou Yi took out his Justice Cleaver, radiating a golden glow, and prepared for a possible attack. Suddenly, a huge pink creature with sharp teeth and claws came to welcome him. The monster tried to grab him, grunting loudly, but Zhou Yi was already waiting and shouted, "Die!" A strong light emanated, a golden glow like the sun, as Zhou Yi used his skill single-blade axe and struck a blow at the formidable creature. Zhou Yi stared at the blood spraying around and remembered that a month had passed since he was still at level 10. The average attribute value had already reached an abnormal 47 points, equivalent to a level 13 professional. Standing there in front of two pieces of the monster, he knew he could be among the top candidates in the entire Suzhou and Hangzhou province. Two monsters still observed Zhou Yi from behind a tree, and confidently our protagonist said, "If you don't come, I'll attack myself." He activated the skill blessing of the weapon, now at level 4. His body glowed, his eyes were already golden, shining along with the mark on his forehead. He positioned his sword full of energy and cut another creature in half, leaving only traces of golden light. Under the effect of the S+ talent from the Angelic Saint's protection, the Paladin's exclusive skill, blessing of the weapons was also enhanced, and the strength of the single-blade axe increased by an additional 21. Zhou Yi continued to fight against all the monsters that appeared before him, leaving trails and explosions of yellow energy. Immersed in his thoughts during the battle, he knew that if other students discovered this powerful increase, they could feel a lot of envy. Despite everything, the exam dungeon was limited to weapons classified as 3-star bronze or lower, and the enhanced single-blade axe in his hands was a 5-star bronze quality weapon. In the grand exam, where each attribute was valuable, this was enough to create a significant gap between him and the other students. Surrounded on all sides by monsters, Zhou Yi summoned the pure white blade. He then crossed his hands, forming a cross, and shot several blades in all directions where the creatures were. Everyone who witnessed that moment vibrated with excitement. The pure white blade, boosted to level 5, had considerable light attribute damage, and with the reinforcement of the Angelic Saint's protection, Zhou Yi could instantly eliminate low-level monsters. Holding the hand of one of the monsters, he amplified his energy and shot it at one of the creatures still standing. The blow hit the middle of the monster, causing its imminent defeat. Everyone watching was completely amazed by the actions of our protagonist. They said, "This is insane. It's simply overwhelming." While others commented, "This Zhou Yi is very powerful." The vibrations didn't stop there. Someone said, "I saw that simple axe in the shopping center. It's very heavy, but Zhou Yi uses it as if it were a toy." Some wondered if he had invested his points in strength, and in response, a cross-armed and grumpy-faced man mentioned the speed comparison between the demonic feline and our protagonist. Not only the speed, but even his axe was extremely fast and powerful. So, the free points, like wisdom, definitely weren't low. The angle of the axe, the attack distance, and the intensity were very well controlled. The reality was that Zhou Yi was simply a combat genius. Our protagonist was being observed and analyzed by various people. One of the teachers observed another colleague who was intensely analyzing that battle and thought, "How did someone so talented end up in Class 5? While another man, with a more severe expression, affirmed that this student, Zhou Yi, really had a strong sense of combat. However, what he did was reckless. The first wave of felines was a waste of energy. In the Nightmare Difficulty dungeon, demons not only have great strength but also a large quantity. At this moment, Zhou Yi was surrounded, and there were various monsters on all sides. Seeing this situation, the man completed his analysis. Not even the best mage could falter due to magical power exhaustion. The weight of the axe itself is a huge burden for a professional. He might not feel it when cutting once or twice, but if he cuts hundreds of times in a row, he won't have the strength to lift the axe, and eventually, he'll be torn apart by the demonic felines. The demonic felines were everywhere, eager for the human flesh that Zhou Yi represented. Jumping toward our protagonist, Zhou Yi focused only, knowing that the next wave of felines was coming, and there might not be time to breathe. There should be at least 100 demonic felines in the area. The question on everyone's mind in that tense moment was, could Zhou Yi escape from this? With all those felines coming his way, hungry and thirsty, Zhou Yi had his attack ready, and, with his axe, left only the trail of energy in the air, cutting the felines closest to him. Again, he positioned himself, joined his two hands to form the cross of his skill, and shot while leaping in the air, aiming to hit those fearsome creatures. As he descended to the ground, Zhou Yi quickly spun his weapon, turning it into a spinning lance that cut any monster that dared to approach. He struck his final blow on a monster trying to reach him. Slowly, the lance aimed at the head of that creature, and with just one touch, the last monster fell, leaving Zhou Yi standing in front of that terrain now surrounded by dead monsters. Suddenly, in front of him, a blue circle opened, catching the attention of our protagonist, and expanded until it became a complete portal. This portal was the entrance to the next level. Confidently, Zhou Yi put his weapon on his shoulder, walked towards the portal, and passed through it. On the other side, dozens of creatures were already waiting for him, all hungry for human flesh, ready to make Zhou Yi their afternoon snack. In the live broadcast on Kwaikan, the presenter gestured toward the large screen, displaying images of the participants' feats. He referred to himself as the favorite host, narrating to his audience, What we are witnessing now is excellence incarnate, the most outstanding and popular student from the Second Academy, holder of the rare Class S talent, and the brilliant champion in the Great Challenge, our esteemed Zhou Yi. The presenter brimmed with enthusiasm. His face lit up as he pointed to the timer, exclaiming, "He conquered the first level of the Nightmare Dungeon in an incredible time, just 3 minutes and 17 seconds. Folks, this is absolutely extraordinary." As the young man pointed out that this surpassed the record of the previous year's favorite, the cameraman gently asked him not to block the lens, sensing the tension in the situation. In the audience, a spectator commented on our protagonist's frenetic movements, noting that he seemed a bit exhausted towards the end. This prompted a question about how many physical points Joe had. Quickly, a young woman in the audience enthusiastically responded, explaining that Director Jia had warned about the risk of depleting his energy during the initial encounter with the monsters, but she still expressed some skepticism regarding the director's words upon seeing the young man on the screen. Master Lee then intervened in the conversation, emphasizing the importance of carefully analyzing the exam, suggesting that Director Jia's words might not be entirely trustworthy. The girl noticed Master Lee's disguised smile, questioning his true happiness in the moment. Despite Lee crossing his arms and telling her not to talk nonsense, he soon placed his hands on his own cheeks, reflecting to himself, "Is the smile on my face that obvious?" The narrator continues to comment on our protagonist, who was already facing a variety of monsters after passing through the Door of Light. The monsters awaiting him had different levels and classifications, each with diverse abilities. Joey began to analyze his situation, noticing the presence of fluorescent feline demons acting as priests, fiery feline demons playing the role of mages, and dark feline demons steeped in curse. Additionally, there was a silver minotaur capable of inflicting extremely high damage, making the combination of their attacks even more dangerous. If in the first level of the dungeon, Zhou Yi faced individual adversaries, now, in the second level, he would confront a well-trained army, thus increasing the threat of death 100-fold. Suddenly, all those creatures unleashed a deafening roar, filling the dungeon with thunderous and terrifying sounds, especially as they displayed their mouths full of sharp teeth. In no time, the creatures began to advance towards our protagonist, some attacking directly while others stayed in the rear, preparing long-range abilities. However, what surprised Jui was when he realized a dark figure enveloping his hand, soon spreading throughout his entire body, leaving him completely immobilized. He had been cursed by the feline demon, trapped in that place as the monsters drew closer and closer. The curse began to tighten around his neck, but Joey showed no signs of apprehension. On the contrary, his gaze brimmed with confidence as he proclaimed, "The warrior advances, the priest grants protection, and the mage assists with spells. Cooperation is crucial to the strategy." In the audience, everyone was nervous about what could happen, some even trying to disguise their tense expressions. When one of the feline demons attempted to attack Zhou with its claws, our protagonist invoked the power of his necklace, causing it to glow intensely. Within seconds, this glow intensified, enveloping him completely as he uttered the words, "Cross of Sacred Light." Instantly, from the sky descended a massive cross with a strong golden glow, firmly embedding itself in the ground around him. Its radiance was so intense and powerful that the dreadful creatures began to burn in agony. Roars of despair and pain echoed as the golden intensity grew stronger, leaving everyone motionless in the face of the magnitude of the event. This ability was the Cross of Sacred Light, Level 4, and Classification B. It summons sacred light, condensed in the form of a cross through the conjurer, inflicting continuous fire damage with light attribute to enemies within a certain range every second. It didn't take long for the wave of monsters to be defeated instantly, leaving our protagonist Zhou Yi facing the fallen bodies of his opponents. This caused a stir among everyone present, including Director Jia, who exclaimed, "How fierce! All the low-level monsters were annihilated in an instant. Who the hell told me that a Paladin is a support class? That's an area attack skill with a B classification." Talents were also ranked, just like skills, with 7 different levels, from lowest to highest. The higher the ranking, the stronger the effect, and the harder to obtain them. While observing the scene, Joey reflected, "The government usually provides the most resources for C-rank abilities. How can they have B-rank abilities? Joey is not an ordinary boy." Despite the havoc caused by Joey's ability, there was still a minotaur standing before him. With his glow still radiant and the cross embedded behind him, Joey pointed his weapon at the monster and challenged, "It's just you left, come on!" The minotaur, in turn, unleashed its rage ability, accompanied by a much larger shadow than itself. Its eyes turned red, matching with another ability called Supreme Lord and War Stomp. The ground split open, forcing Zhou Yi to leap to try to dodge the attack. The creature charged towards Zhou Yi, using another ability called Wild Shock, which in its hegemonic state cannot be interrupted by any damage. However, Zhou Yi leaped again and used his aerial cutting ability, striking the monstrosity with a light that sent it flying. He then wielded his sword and began to strike the opponent with his skill, Pure White Blade, but the Minotaur's tough skin seemed to have no effect. Realizing this, Zhou Yi raised his sword and delivered a powerful blow that cleaved the monster in half. Death was imminent for the fearsome creature, with blood spreading across the area as Zhou Yi approached the sprawled body on the ground to check if it was dead. With a firm motion, he crushed the Minotaur's head with his foot, causing a circular sphere to form, indicating the portal to the next level where the boss awaited. The crowd erupted in madness and delirium as the 4-meter Minotaur was defeated with just one axe blow, a truly impressive feat. The narrator exclaimed, "Folks, we can't forget that this happened while the Minotaur was in a rage, and that power is absolutely absurd. What an incredible combination. We love you, Senior Joe." He continued to shout with excitement, announcing that the second level was completed in just 59 seconds. Even Director Gia was impressed. Our protagonist had demonstrated skillful control of his abilities, along with extraordinary power. Clapping his hands, the director remarked, "It's hard to believe he changed classes just a month ago." He turned to the school director and added, "Director Luo, congratulations. The second academy is about to have an unparalleled prodigy." In response, Lu offered a smile, stating that it was time for the academy to produce someone truly exceptional. Since the school's founding, the best student had been the 721st in the province, and Lu hoped that Zhou could once again elevate the second academy to new heights. Suddenly, someone in the audience pointed to the screen, noting that Zhou hadn't rested before facing the boss level, which caught everyone's attention, including the two directors present. Gia had a startled reaction, exclaiming, "What? If he doesn't recover and loses the battle against the boss, it will be a great loss." Lu tried to calm him down, suggesting that Zhou had his reasons and that everyone should just wait patiently. In the provinces of Suzhou and Hangzhou, known for their large population and abundance of talent, the top students often choose to face challenges in solo mode, on nightmare difficulty when they aim to reach the top 100 in the province. To become a provincial champion, they seek to overcome levels in the shortest time possible, facing the same difficulty. Zhou Yi was already in the boss room, where the Bull King, level 16 and unknown classification, welcomed him on his throne with a threat. "Human, for daring to set foot in my palace, prepare to die." The boss rose, wielding an axe, roaring loudly and ready to end our protagonist. Before him, Zhou Yi seemed as insignificant as an ant. Zhou Yi prepared to face the Bull King, utilizing his abilities of Dawn Blessing, Gift of Courage, and Divine Gift, and finally, the Gift of Protection, thus completing the Enhancement Blessing. The Bull King stared at him for a moment, and suddenly, our protagonist was fully equipped with his gleaming armor in its primal form, declaring, "Horned One, I'm right here." Both advanced towards each other for the long-awaited confrontation. Zhou Yi leapt, attempting to strike his axe into the Bull King. However, even with a giant axe equipped with 4 types of enhancement abilities, he could barely cut through the monster's flesh. The tension was palpable, reflected even in his helmet, which echoed his feelings. The Bull King bellowed, swinging his sword down upon Zhou Yi and delivering a blow in his direction. The force was so immense that the impact sent debris flying and raised a dense cloud of brown dust. At the last moment, our protagonist skillfully managed to dodge. With visibility reduced by the dust, a purple spot was perceptible amidst the confusion. Suddenly, Zhou Yi was caught off guard by the Bull King, who then struck him with his axe. The blow was so devastating that it pierced through several stone columns one after another. Luckily, Zhou Yi's Paladin armor protected him, or else his bones would have been shattered. Nonetheless, he reflected to himself, "Fortunately, this fight has taught me a lot, and this blow was not in vain." Zhou Yi extended his hand forward, pointing with just 2 fingers, and uttered, "Spear of Victory." A golden light began to materialize in his hand, followed by several portals through which these spears began to form. This ability, known as the Spear of Victory, was level 3, classification C. It shot a spear condensed with divine power at the opponent, inflicting great damage. Even pinned to the wall, Zhou Yi was now surrounded by several of these spears aiming towards the Bull King. All blades were fired towards their target, but they were intercepted by the boss's axe. The Bull King was much stronger and more powerful, making it impossible to defeat him with brute force alone. However, Zhou Yi knew that to win the provincial championship, he would need to find a way to overcome this adversity. Reflecting on this as he continued to launch several blades against his opponent, Zhou Yi affirmed to himself, "The intention of the examiners is never to put the students in a dead end, so there must be various ways to solve this problem." He began to analyze from the beginning of the fight, seeking to discover an effective strategy. He realized that the Bull King's agility attribute was low, so if he could attack quickly from various directions, it might be difficult for the monster to react. So, Zhou Yi continued to press the attacks, capitalizing on the Bull King's weakness in endurance. Despite having greater durability and HP, the monster was still susceptible to suffering severe negative effects and damage when attacked. Zhou Yi knew he needed to unleash abilities that caused high damage multiple times in a short period. The Bull King finally fell to his knees, unable to defend against the numerous attacks launched, granting our protagonist a golden opportunity. Once again, Zhou Yi fired the blades towards the monster, causing a burst of light as he received a notification that his magical power was at its limit and needed recharge time. Achieving this required precise control of the timing and frequency of releasing the skill. As he moved towards the Bull King for the final attack, Zhou Yi had many dilemmas in his mind. If my final attack doesn't work properly, I will fail the exam due to magical power exhaustion before killing the boss. He wanted to use a big attack to finish him off, but unfortunately, time was running out, and this would be his last chance. Then, swiftly, he drew his axe and delivered a powerful blow to the Bull King. He attacked with all the strength he had left, cleaving the boss's body in 2 parts, thus causing his opponent's imminent death. A message congratulating Joey for completing the Nightmare difficulty Dark Forest dungeon in 9 minutes and 24 seconds was sent, thus recording the result of his evaluation. As he began to undo his armor, another message appeared before him, surprising him even more. It informed him of his classification score as an excellent SSS, positioning him as number 1 in the dungeon. With a look of astonishment as he read this, Joey realized that he had become the top student in the provincial exam of Hangzhou. Feeling an incredible happiness at having achieved his goal, he began to reminisce about the challenges he faced to get there. The previous year, since the time travel, his mother had passed away due to illness, and his sister had fallen seriously ill. He was overwhelmed with high debts and hospital costs. Despite it all, amidst this difficult environment, he chose not to give up, repeating to himself, "If you can't improve your attributes, work hard to enhance your fighting skills and cultivate your fighting consciousness." The appearance of the system was just a turning point in his life. His destiny was still guided by his own hands. It merely gave him the opportunity to work harder than others, making him unwavering in his heart. Completely undoing his armor, Zoe prepared to cross the portal that had opened again, ready to return. As a reward for his achievement, he had gained 5,212 experience points, along with 20 free attributes and 20 skill points. He ascended 3 levels, reaching level 13. He received an equipment called the Belt of Intense Forest, which provided him with 10 physical attribute points and 7 more in strength, along with life recovery effects and physical and magical recovery speed. Additionally, he obtained the Forest Ring, which increased his agility by 8 points and wisdom by 10, also offering life recovery, resistance speed, and magical recovery. Among other items, he also received 10 wild strawberries, which restored his magical power when ingested, and a bull card, classified as gold, an enchanting material that increased the team's power by 20 points after successfully being used. Upon returning to the exam site, he was greeted with warm applause and a hearty reception. Some hailed him as a Paladin god, while others expressed their love for him. His name echoed throughout the crowd, leaving him completely amazed by the wildly cheering audience. The directors of the Academy and Education welcomed him with smiles on their faces, acknowledging that completing a nightmare-level dungeon in just 10 minutes was an honor unseen for decades. They stated to Zhou Yi, "With our years of experience in university admission exams, Zhou Yi could be the best student in Suzhou and Hangzhou. He has a bright future ahead." Zhou Yi was profoundly grateful for these words. After his participation concluded, a fast car swiftly appeared on the scene, leaving everyone in the audience perplexed about its identity and the reason for being there. They soon realized with astonishment that it was a magical item called S-400, capable of entering flight mode. This item was handed over to Director Jia, who informed Zhou Yi that the results would be available in 3 days, and that he would receive an immediate notification when the time came. Director Luo emphasized the need for Zhou Yi to rest, and directed him to use the item. Zhou Yi was taken to the hospital, and as he walked through the corridors, he remembered the last conversation. Zhao Wenbin had quickly fulfilled his promise, transferring Yun to a more luxurious medical room and ensuring a professional team to oversee her condition 24 hours a day. Upon arriving at the hospital, Zhou Yi was approached by a nurse who was with him in the elevator. She smiled in greeting as he mentioned he was there to share good news with his sister. The nurse had heard that he had taken the exams that day, and from his happy expression, she presumed he had done well. As they reached her floor, a light breeze entered the elevator, suddenly turning into a strange chill. This was felt by both the nurse and Zhou Yi. The protagonist noticed ice forming as they reached the 26th floor, and upon opening the door, everything was covered in ice, leaving the nurse frightened and confused while Jo-yi was completely intrigued. Ahead of them, all the people were completely frozen and Jo-yi could only think of one thing: his sister. Without hesitation, he ran towards her room, unable to see anything else in front of him, while the nurse reached out her arm and shouted for him to wait. However, she too ended up being frozen by the strange phenomenon. Upon reaching the room, Jo-yi panicked, shouting her name, but he was incredulous to see a spiritual ice dragon circling around his sister.